Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Natalie. This is Scientology Life After a Cult. How are you guys all doing today? I went to bed early. I know, of all nights, right? You think want to stay up late, but I thought if I stayed up late to wait for the election results to come in, I would stay up way too late and would regret it today. So I got the news this morning, but I wasn't up late. Did you guys stay up late? I'm always curious as to well, late for me, it's like after maybe 10 o'clock, maybe 11, maybe after 11. Let me know in the chat if you're on the replay, jump in. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much to the moderators for helping out today. And a beautiful good morning and aloha to the members for being here. Thank you. And all of you. We have some stuff to get into today, including how Scientology protects predators and some cult spotting 101 that you must know. There's a twist in some news that we're going to go over. We're going to get to that. So hang out, guys, hang out. We're going to get through a bunch of stuff here. Ooh, 1 a.m. That is late, Hunter Bay. That is late. Okay, so a lot of you did stay up late last night. No way, K-Rad. 25 hours a week? What are you doing? Are you after this, of course, because now you're committed, you're here, you got to be here for the live. But right after that, you got to go to sleep. All right. Let's get going on this. Let's jump into a little bit of Scientology Up North. Miriam created a little short, and I love it because Scientology's math is just not mathing. Let's take a look at this. Again, this is Scientology Up North.
This is a good point, actually. Someone is saying contracts are for 1 billion years, but the IAS membership is only for a lifetime. That doesn't make very much sense.
So right, so true. Such a little thing, but really, it's kind of it's one of many contradictions in Scientology. There are so many. But this is one that's like, well, if you believe so much that you come back lifetime after lifetime, why shouldn't your membership cover all of it? You know what I'm saying? Especially for people that get further up Scientology's bridge to total freedom. The further you get up, the further you're supposed to be able to maintain your memories when you come back in another lifetime to do Scientology. So Scientology is willing to have you sign a 1 billion-year contract as a member of the Sea organization, committing to coming back lifetime after lifetime to do the work of David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard. But when you're giving them money, that's only good for one lifetime. It's only a one lifetime deal. I think that point is so valid. And I wish that I would have thought of that when I was in Scientology. Honestly, I did. I wish I would have thought of that. How it did not occur to me. But this is the beauty of being on YouTube for me on a personal level, is so many of you spot these things and go, well, wait a minute, what about that? And I love it. I love it because I'm looking at going, oh my gosh, how did we not see that or think about that? Why that would be. When I looked back on it after I watched that clip, I thought, well, I think it was probably justified in the ways that Scientologists do in saying, well, Scientology needs the money. You know what I'm saying? You got to continue to support, but it still doesn't play because they have people who have donated millions and millions of dollars, right? Rebecca Minkoff's family, Grant Cardone. I mean, the list goes on and on. Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson. But if and when they come back, which theoretically they will come back to be Scientologists, no, none of the status, none of that carries over. So I thought that was hilarious. You guys tell me your thoughts on it. And I'm seeing your comments too. A lot of you were up really late. I'm glad that you're here. Well done. Good job. Okay, now let's go over to Shaun Attwood, who had actor Matthew Marsden on. You might remember him. He was in Rambo, Black Hawk Down. I think he was even in Transformers, just multiple movies. And I think he was a model as well. Anyways, he did an interview with him. And of course, Scientology comes up because it does seem that despite the fact that in the grand scheme of things, there aren't a ton of Scientologists, but boy, do they get around, right? They really do. And if you are in Hollywood, you're going to run into a Scientologist at some point, especially with Celebrity Center being right there in Hollywood and constantly holding workshops for actors, for writers, how to make connections in Hollywood. And all of these things held at Scientology Celebrity Center are purely done to recruit people into Scientology through the arts. And I got to say, that is one of the things about Scientology. There are many, but one of the things that really bothers me about Scientology recruitment is the way that they try to infiltrate the arts. I feel like, I mean, all people need to be protected from cults, but artists, people who are truly creative and creating art, tend to really be a target of Scientology and other cults, which we're going to get into later in this video, some really key information on spotting cults and what you need to know. But they're just constantly going after the artists, and I can see why. Because art, different types of art, whether it's acting or music or written word, can cut across so much BS and reach an individual and be very impactful. So it makes sense that Scientology would want to glom onto those people who are or have the potential to be highly influential. And it's just always bothered me. A lot of things bother me, but that's one that I've seen them even ruin artists. People who are bright and, go through Scientology and just get like beat up and don't always come out the other side of that and still continue to create their art. So anyways, let's go now and take a look at a clip from this video with this actor and his run-in with Scientology.
A lot of people asking if you came across Scientology in Hollywood.
I did. You know what? Very funny. I can tell you, I had two experiences with Scientology where they did. I don't know if they still do, but they had a place down in Santa Monica. They had a place in, I want to say, would they have in Glendale? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm trying to remember now whether it was Glendale or. But anyway, I was in line once at Six Flags, and this couple started talking to me, and they were Scientologists, and
I find it so interesting that like you're in line at Six Flags. On my best day in Scientology, as a former Scientologist from a multi-generational Scientology family, you'd think I would have been more of a zealot. If I'm in line at Six Flags, how does that come up? How does it come up that you're a Scientologist and then you're trying to recruit? That is some hardcore Scientology recruitment.
they were trying to like get me to go to their place or whatever it is to go and have the hold the things and whatever. And then I got asked twice. It's all within a space of like 2 weeks. And my girlfriend at the time had an experience with Scientology, and it freaked her out. Like, she was like, "You don't understand. Like, they know what you're doing." And I'm like, "No, they don't." But on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica, there's a Scientology center, and I got targeted twice by them. And but I never got involved. And I did actually. This person is going to remain nameless, but they're very, very good friends of mine. They came up to me and they were like, "Hey, have you ever thought of Scientology?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm Catholic." And they were like, "Oh, yeah, you can be Catholic and you can be a Scientologist." I was like, "No, you can't."
Even he knows this. No, you can't. This is a claim that Scientology makes over and over and over again. In their book, What is Scientology? They talk about how Scientology is non-denominational. You could be Catholic, you could be any type of other religion and also be a Scientologist. And that is complete and utter BS. They tell you that in the beginning, because when you first get started, right, they're not completely trying to change your life day one. Although something I'm seeing with recent recruitment for Scientology, they're getting more aggressive in speeding that up. There was a time in the past where they would let people new to Scientology kind of simmer, do their beginning courses and not touch them. You weren't allowed to recruit them. You weren't allowed to try and sell them services way beyond their comprehension of what they would need. That is changing. I've heard from a few people who are under the radar Scientologists, meaning they want to leave, but they got to be on the down low for now because of family connections, witnessing this, that Scientology's desperation for new people and staff members and Sea Org members is so strong, they're so desperate that they're pushing people even harder, which would explain, I think, well, we have been seeing them out more, and many people live streaming who protest Scientology catch them at different festivals and outdoor markets and different things trying to sell their Dianetics books. They are getting more aggressive on pushing this. Now, what's going to happen? What does that mean inside of Scientology? These people aren't going to stick around. As it is, I read somewhere once that a lot of people, even when you get kind of far in Scientology, and I mean like you're on their actual bridge to total freedom, beyond the beginning courses, you're still out the door within 2 years. It is really difficult for Scientology to retain new people, especially if they don't have family in Scientology. Because the number one thing Scientology will use to control its members is its harmful practice of disconnection. Well, if you're a new person into Scientology and you've been in a year, maybe even 2, but your family members are not because they know better and they're just watching this crap show from a distance to see what happens with you, they're not going to go for it. So this person who would then leave Scientology has no family connections and likely even work connections. And it's easier for them to just leave and go Scientology, or just say, look, don't call, lose my number, block, block, block. Too bad we can't block mail, though. This is why I think I have a theory about why Scientology still uses so much paper in their mailing with their flyers and all of that. It's because they know people will block them on email. People will block them by phone. But what is something we can't stop them from doing? Mailing crap to us. That is very difficult to get off their mailing list. I know you guys know this. I know you know this. Scottish Scouser says Matthew Marsden interview was so good. Yes, when I am done with this video, I'm linking below everything we're talking about so you can go read those articles, see those videos in full, and really take your time with it. All right, now let's go over and look at this story that's out about Jenna Elfman. Do you guys remember Jenna Elfman? I think more recently she's been on The Walking Dead and some other show that escapes me right now, but she's most well known for being in Dharma and Greg, which I think a lot of you are my age, so you probably remember that, Dharma and Greg, if you guys remember. Y'all remember? That show from way back when. So she's been out on, The Walking Dead and another show that escapes me. And there's this article out on Fandom Wire that we are going to look at that I thought it was interesting that they would be bringing Jenna Elfman up right now, because I'm kind of like, well, what's the, what is she doing? But this is interesting. So Marcy remembers. Jolyn, okay, good. I'm not the only one here. Hey, Becky, good to see you. Okay, good. That's awesome. Hey, Power Lies to Paralyze. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at this Jenna Elfman. Jenna Elfman, by the way, married to Bodhi Elfman, who is the person who got her into Scientology. These two have been married for like over 30 years, I think the article says. I give a damn about making the world a better place. Real reason we rarely see Jenna Elfman anymore after Dharma and Greg Star embraced Scientology. So right away, I'm like, ooh, tell me more. Tell me more. Jenna Elfman, whose presence in the mainstream spotlight has dwindled out in the last 2 decades, embraced her affiliation with Scientology. And there's a visual there. Remember her from Dharma and Greg. I really did like that show. So let's see here. After hitting it big in the late 90s, thanks to Dharma and Greg's unexpected success, which earned her a Golden Globe win, Jenna Elfman's presence in showbiz dwindled out in the years that followed. While the actress has starred in several sitcoms since, those releases weren't able to replicate the buzz of Dharma and Greg, which lasted for 5 seasons. There they are. Another major factor has been the actress's devotion to Scientology and her personal life. Moreover, it seems Elfman is quite contained with her life outside of showbiz. So I remember that haircut. I remember thinking, like, how did they get her hair to do that? I mean, you had to use a lot of hairspray. and maybe some teasing under that. I digress, but I've always wondered. Since being introduced to Scientology in the mid-90s, courtesy of Bodhi Elfman, with whom she'd been married for the past 3 decades at this point, Jenna Elfman has been quite vocal about her stance on Scientology. Similar to other celebs that are affiliated with Scientology, including Tom Cruise, Elfman expressed her desire to see other people thriving, adding, "I give a damn about making the world a better place." So this is kind of like this is kind of, I think this came from an earlier interview when she said, "What is important to me? I give a damn about making the world a better place. I care about seeing others smile with genuine happiness. I think the world needs more of that. I'm not interested in sensationalism." In other words, she's probably talking about the truth about Scientology. That's just sensationalism. Don't pay any attention to that. I'm just over here trying to live my best life. I'm interested in seeing other people do well. Yeah, Jenna, as long as they're not former Scientologists, right? And spreading kindness, warmth, and sincerity. Again, as long as they're not people who have something to say about your religion, because we've seen some of the public comments she's made about that. I never forget to appreciate the absurd. Well, the absurd, is she talking about Scientology? Maybe. Maybe. And I find it uplifting to admire what's right in others. I also find it pleasurable to be totally ridiculous. Considering she's been devoted to Scientology for the better part of 3 decades, this somewhat explains her absence from the mainstream limelight. However, Scientology isn't the lone subject that has kept the actress occupied in the aftermath of Dharma and Grace's success, as apart from being a podcast host alongside her husband, Elfman has prioritized her personal life. So this is her from The Walking Dead. Oh, Dark Winds. Was this from? Yeah. The Dark Wind star is yet to, okay, blah, blah, blah. So it's just more about her time and the other projects that she's doing and working on. But I find that so interesting, because how do you on one hand say, "Oh, I support this and I want people to be happy"? This is the same woman who, when confronting people asking her about Scientology, accused them of harming babies. That's the response. That's part of the response Scientologists are trained to give, is when somebody is questioning Scientology or pointing out its abuses, is you accuse them of being a child essayer or something like that. I mean, really pot kettle when you think about it. And that is what they're trained to do, and to respond to accusations like that. And she was doing it back in the day. And I think that had a lot to do too with people going like, "Ooh, girl, we're going to take a step back from you right now." I'm telling you. Yeah, isn't it? Isn't it crazy? Yeah, what are your crimes? Paralyzed to paralyze. That is what they do. What are your crimes? What are your crimes? They're always looking for the crimes of other people, which again seems like so much projection, being that Scientology has a long history of protecting predators, which we're going to talk more about. And they are so obsessed with people who have criticism or questions or bring up abuses in Scientology that they are the predators. It's complete deflection that they do. And you see it often. In fact, if you go back on a channel like either Tori Magoo 44 or Mark Bunker and look at some of their earlier videos of protesting Scientology from years ago, we're talking even a couple decades in some cases, and you see this as a tactic. The Scientologists would get right up in their face. "What are your crimes? What are your crimes?" Just really aggressive. And you'll notice we don't see that as much anymore today. We don't. I think I have thoughts on this. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, especially, my former Scientology friends. Honestly, I think it's because, one, there aren't enough people that would be doing that on behalf of Scientology to just go confront some strangers. Because look at who we've seen doing that. Look at the live streaming that's been happening over the last year just in California, just Hollywood, for example. The people who do tend to go and confront the people who are live streaming and protesting Scientology are elderly Scientologists. Where are the new people? It's because there aren't as many that are younger. And that old school Scientology point of view of, oh, if they're accusing you of something, that means they're doing it. So if they're accusing Scientology of being predators, then that's because they're predators and you need to point that out to them. It doesn't work and it backfires. And I think Scientology today doesn't trust their own people to defend Scientology with good reason, seriously. Yeah, power lies to paralyze. Exactly. The only ones confronting protesters are the old heads. Yeah. It's the people who were around from back in the day when that was the tactic that was used. And today we don't see that as much, except for people who are elderly in Scientology, because that's what they know. That is what they know. Okay, now let's talk about, I have to talk about this. Screen Queen is a channel here on YouTube and put out a video saying new party footage of Diddy and Tom Cruise changes everything. Scientology connection exposed. We're going to look at a clip. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this, and it actually might surprise you. So take a look at this clip.
Just when you thought you'd seen it all, new footage has surfaced linking Diddy and Tom Cruise, two of the most untouchable figures in Hollywood, in ways no one saw coming. Diddy's infamous parties, already legendary for their secrecy and scandal, are rumored to have involved hidden recordings of some major stars, including Cruise. But it gets even messier. With Diddy facing charges and a possible plea deal, this footage could change everything, especially with Cruise's deep ties to the Church of Scientology. Let's get into it because these connections run deeper than anyone expected.
All right, here's the deal. So I did watch the video, and these are my thoughts on this. One thing we know about Tom Cruise, this is a man who it's not even good enough that you are a Scientologist to hang out with him, right? You could be a Scientologist in good standing, but you're still not good enough. This is a man who says he holds himself to the highest ethical standard. I've heard stories of him not letting people come to things that he is at because of their they lack morals. So people who, like, maybe he heard that they'd been to a strip club. True story on this one, that he's not going to associate with them. He really sees himself as this ultra ethical person who is at cause, right? Because of Scientology. I'm not believing this one. I think that is a stretch, tying Tom Cruise to it. And I will happily admit that I'm wrong if there's any real black and white evidence that comes out about this. I think Tom Cruise really believes the Kool-Aid that he is mixing about himself and about Scientology. I think he really, he believes those things, and that he is so ethical that he has to surround himself only by people who uphold his ethical standard. I just don't see him, running with that crowd. And, outside of, maybe running into people in certain social circles or premieres or things like that. You guys tell me your thoughts. I think that's a stretch, and that there's not really a tie there between Tom Cruise and Diddy beyond, like I said, where they've been at events. I put in my thumbnail a photo of him with Katie and Diddy. A photo with does not really prove anything. But because Tom Cruise has such a stick up his butt about a lot of things, I'm really feeling like that is a stretch. Julie, exactly. Oh, yeah. Tom Cruise is a beacon of morality and compassion. Exactly. That's what's so funny about it, because that's what he thinks. Marilyn Knowles, thank you for becoming a member. Hip, hip, hooray. Mahalo, my friend. Make sure you join us. We have been doing member-only lives on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock. Time is subject to change, but it's a great opportunity for me to get to know you guys more and for you to get to know me. We talk about things that we don't talk about here on the recap and have a lot of fun. We did one yesterday and it was fun. So I would encourage you, if you feel so moved and you want to have those conversations, behind the scenes conversations with me, to hit up that membership. You can hit join on my page, and there is a link down below in the description of this video as well. Mock says he grew up in Catholicism, so Diddy parties are nowhere near his comfort zone. Yes, at one point, Tom Cruise wanted to be a priest. I mean, he was seriously considering it. So again, I will be the first person to admit if I'm totally wrong on this, but nothing I've seen about him would back up that type of connection, or that he would be caught dead. It's so beneath him to be out ethics, as they say in Scientology. Tom Cruise would have had a fit if he found out that I took strip fitness classes where we stayed fully clothed and exercised on a pole. He would have a fit. He would not be inviting me to anything just because of that. Because remember, I got knowledge reports written on me about that, which is, it's not even a big deal. It's not even a thing. So big stretch, I think. But tell me what you guys think. If you're on the replay, jump in those comments. Cubana Chica says, yep, I have to agree with you, Natalie. Yeah, I just think so. I'm just not really buying that. Monica, good point. I haven't heard about one person who has maintained his memory when he came back. That's right. So people coming back who claim that they were a previous lifetime Scientologist. Let me tell you real quick how they do that. There aren't that many people that just walk in and go, I was a Scientologist in the last lifetime, and just start rattling off exact facts. Supposedly, you can go and find a person's folders from a previous life, right? They're supposed to come up with, well, my name was this. And then you can find those folders and it will back it up. In all the years, my 35 years in Scientology with 3 generations of my family, 4 if you count my grandpa dad, I've never heard of that. I know people have looked, but they did not, it was a claim that was not substantiated. And I feel like it'd be so easy for Scientology to just go, oh, here, and show that. Here's what actually happens in Scientology when you do auditing. If you say in an auditing session, oh my gosh, I'm realizing I was Jesus Christ in a previous life, your auditor's going to say, okay, thank you. Like, that's it. They're not going to push back and go, okay, you are the 5th Jesus this year, so I don't think so. They don't do that. They just accept it, which is crazy when you think about all the things that Scientology does push back on their members. You can say anything about a past life and it will not be invalidated. You will not be told, oh, no, maybe that's not quite right. Case in point, the Holy Rogue here on YouTube. I interviewed him not long ago, and he shared a story about how he had undiagnosed mental health issues. And during his time in Scientology, he became convinced that he was a female operating Thetan in a previous life. And he made life decisions based on that blew up his life. Validated by Scientology, because they don't push back on that. You could say you were anybody. I mean, it really is nutty. Armine, thank you for becoming a member. Mahalo and a hip hip hooray to you. I hope you can join us too. You can also catch the members only live streams on replay. Marcy, Natalie, you're so naughty. I feel like I missed something in the chat. Wow, I'm naughty. I mean, yes, that's true. It'd be a lot of the things I do would be considered naughty around talking about Scientology and all of the things. Oh, Lisa, yes, Nicole Kidman is great in The Perfect Couple. That is true. Guys, she's really done some good work. She has. James Steele, I'm laughing at your jokes in the chat there. Jolie says, I think we're going to be shocked when the names are confirmed. Yeah. I agree. When it comes to the whole Diddy thing, I agree with that. I will be very shocked if there's actual true evidence of Tom Cruise participating in any of that. And I will admit that I am totally wrong about that. I just don't see it. That's right, Mock. Natalie, don't tell me you enjoyed your sensuality. The scandal, huge scandal in Scientology. And side note, it is my personal belief and reality in my experience in Scientology that, and chime in, my former Scientology friends too, jump in those comments if you're willing to talk about this, or even in the live chat, or you can always email me, Natalie@lifeafteroccult.com. I feel in Scientology, there's an extra suppression of female sexuality more than when it comes to men. Now, that's a whole nother topic for another day, but I want to plant that seed. Think about that. And I feel like it's still going on. There's definitely an issue and problem in Scientology you get in trouble for and pushback if you express if mostly for women. I've seen men handled differently in ways than women are. It's more egregious for some reason if a female indulges in some self-pleasuring as opposed to her male counterpart. But again, whole nother video, whole nother day. I got to remember that one. I actually think that's a good topic there. Julie says it infuriates me that Tom Cruise thinks that women do what women do is any of his business. Exactly. Especially having babies and raising children and how we should do that. Kind of reminds you of L. Ron Hubbard. Yes, making those claims. Lady Jen out. I was Jesus last week. LOL. Yeah, you are not the only one. There's so many claims. And you're not even supposed to say in Scientology who you were in a past life. Yet this stuff spreads like wildfire, in part from the auditors, the person delivering it. They think that I've heard multiple auditors share stories of people they've audited that felt they could share them because they didn't say who the person was. Yeah. Oh, you got to run for your money because James Steele says, no, he's Jesus. That's right, Marcy. It was the pole exercise class. That was the naughty? Okay, yeah. They totally thought so. They pulled my daughter out of her training in Clearwater at Flag to say, your mother is taking strip fitness classes. What in the world? I just it still gets me, even all these years later. Buttercup 49. I think women's sensuality is suppressed, even if not in a high control group. That is really interesting. And you know what? You could be right about that. Let's see. I don't want to fall too behind on these. Crazy fat cats lady. Not saying he did it, but people who have high morals are usually the ones who do it. Yeah, I agree. And under other circumstances or a different person, I totally feel that. And I think that as well, because we've seen that many, many times. But this one is a little crazy. And that's the thing, Lady Jen out. There was no actual evidence that Tom went to those parties. I didn't see it. I didn't see it in those videos. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about how Scientology protects predators. Growing up in Scientology, Aaron did a video yesterday about a lawsuit involving a Scientology school. And we talked about this. There's been some articles about it. We talked about the other day, but there's a bit more on this story that you guys should know about.
Scientology's protection of sex predators are, to me, two of the most objectionable things about the family destroying human trafficking cult known as Scientology. More and more people who have been victims of that have been coming forward in lawsuits. And several of these lawsuits are doing quite well and are moving forward nicely and have cleared the initial obstacles that most Scientology lawsuits face. This lawsuit against Delphi Academy might as well be a lawsuit against the Church of Scientology. I know that legally it's not, but believe me, for all intents and purposes, it might as well be, especially as far as how Scientology will treat and react, will treat this lawsuit and react to this lawsuit.
Very, very true. We've seen them do it over and over and over again. And even though this was with a school, the Delphi school that uses Scientology, and the lawsuit involved, you might remember if you watched the other day, a man who essayed children at that Delphi school went on to another school, but the person in charge of the school wrote a glaring, like this beautiful recommendation for this guy, knowing what he did at the school. So you just unleash this guy onto an entire new group of students at another school. It's ridiculous. So I'm glad this lawsuit is happening, and I know we're going to be hearing more about that. And it really speaks to, again, the lengths Scientology will go to protect predators. And why? It's because they're protecting themselves. In their eyes, that's fully the intention. They don't give a crap about the victim or even the perpetrator. It's about protecting Scientology because they have such a long history going back to the very beginning. Let's not forget that L. Ron Hubbard was involved in a sex cult and black magic right before he came out with Scientology. Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, that whole thing. So a religion and an organization based where the foundation of its founder was involved in this, and Scientology covers that up. So the very first cover-up of predatory behavior in Scientology was L. Ron Hubbard himself, lying about his past, coming up with an entire dialogue and narrative about his past that's not true, from his war record to his involvement with black magic. Scientology tells its members that L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, he did know Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley, but he was there on a mission to infiltrate the group. And he saved a young woman involved in that black magic sex cult and saved her. No, he ran off with Jack Parsons' girlfriend and stole money from him right before coming out with Dianetics and then Scientology. So covering up predatory behavior goes back to day one. Day one. And Scientologists don't know this. If Scientologists would just Google L. Ron Hubbard black magic or L. Ron Hubbard Jack Parsons, whatever that is, and see for themselves, look, this is what happened. The story you were told is not true. His war record, what you were told, is not true. That really chips away at the foundation, because so much of their belief, even today, there are diehard older Sea Org members and older Scientologists who are hanging in there, even though they disagree with David Miscavige and some of the programs that he's doing, specifically the Ideal Org program, where Scientologists are required to fund these buildings and their renovations. It's crazy. They stick it out because they believe in L. Ron Hubbard. Well, I'm doing this for L. Ron Hubbard. I knew some of these people when I left Scientology, now almost 15 years ago. It'll be 15 years, January 1, 2025. I knew Scientologists like that who pleaded with me, just stick it out. David Miscavige, yeah, we know he's violating some L. Ron Hubbard policy, but L. Ron Hubbard created the tech and it's pure, and we believe in that. We can create change from the inside. No, you can't. How is that working for you? It doesn't work. That's why people leave. And covering it up and Scientology protecting predators, again, goes back to day one. It's a way of operating and working that they've been doing since the beginning, and they will just keep continuing to do it. They will. Let's see. So I'm going to link that down below. So those of you who aren't familiar with that lawsuit should definitely check it out. Let's now go take a look at Scientology Audit Streets LA, William Good, the Good Father, pointing out one of quite a few LAPD who have their heads really high up the butt of Scientology. Let's take a look at this.
Scientology cop right here. This guy on his off duty visited the Winter Wonderland exhibit. So I have to assume this guy's a Scientologist. I mean, if he's going there in his regular clothes, and he was dressed in all black, just like how the Scientologists do. If he's coming there on his free time, then you know, good chance this guy is a Scientologist. He probably hangs on with Tim Tallman. You know, I found out some stuff about Tallman too. I found an email from Tallman that he received from the Church of Scientology back in 2018. They asked if he and then Captain Palka needed celebrities for some reason. I don't understand why the LAPD would be asking the Church of Scientology to supply celebrities, but
so the Scientology has been providing celebrities to the LAPD and other groups for years. It's part of how they safe point Scientology, because the celebrities in Scientology want to make Scientology happy and believe that they're doing good work by spreading the word about Scientology. They do it. And it helps them get clout with David Miscavige, because you got to maintain in the good favor of David Miscavige. So what Scientology does is takes the celebrities that they have and offer them up. Would you like them to speak at your thing, attend your thing? Why don't you come to our celebrity center holiday Christmas party and meet all these celebrities and hobnob with them and all of the things, all with the idea that it's going to lend credibility to Scientology. And many of the people in law enforcement kind of I think they fall into that trap of feeling like they're connected to something important because of these celebrities. It's all that perception of, because this person is really well known, that you have this tie to them, that's automatically a good thing, or that is a desirable thing. And they look the other way on the truth about Scientology and the abuses about Scientology, because they're being love bombed by celebrities. And celebrities are also supporting things that the LAPD cares about. There are many Scientologists of means and celebrities who will donate to those programs, all to bring more clout for Scientology with the LAPD. It just goes back and forth both ways. It is, Irish Matt. It is creepy and highly corrupt, serving the people my belief. Exactly. I agree with you. Hey, Magnus. Glad you're here from Sweden. Yeah, it must be pretty late there. All right, now let's go over to Hollywood Boulevard, where Eric Rader and Davey Mismanaged teamed up to raise awareness about Scientology. You got to see these signs. These are great.
You know, it's funny. They might think we're out here. Like happens every now and then to me, especially when I wear this hat. They think I am Scientology.
That's funny.
I love that. Look at that. Diuretics. That one's one of my favorites.
Hey, Vanessa. Hi, Eaglewood.
Little Davy of the fake Space Navy. Tell the IRS to revoke Scientology's tax exempt status so our police will protect the children. Exactly. You wouldn't think it'd be asking a lot, but when it comes to Scientology and their relationship with the LAPD and we're talking about decades of cover up and protecting people who harm adults and children. Again, like I said earlier, it all goes back. The very first time they did it was with L. Ron Hubbard himself. That set the precedent that, we can just cover that up. We can just move beyond it because it's the greatest good for Scientology. This is the mindset that occurs because Scientologists believe that Scientology is going to change the world, that it is going to bring about this world without insanity, without war, etc. So you're justified, just like any other religious zealot, to do things that are illegal, harmful to other people, or cover it up because they know if it was exposed, if the level of abuse in Scientology, if they owned it, if they admitted it, they know they would lose so much support, and rightfully so. So this is why many Scientologists who are aware of these abuses on both children and adults that have occurred for decades in Scientology, they will continue to cover it up to protect Scientology because Scientology is what is going to save the world. So you see how that works? It's not even necessarily about protecting that person, the predator. It's not even really about that. It's protecting Scientology. That's, I have a million examples of that. And I know you guys know a lot about it as well. Let's see here. There was another story, which, I'm going to skip that. It was just another Tom Cruise thing. And I'm like, actually, it sounds kind of boring. Okay, let's get into this whole cult 101 thing and some side effects of what I do here, what you guys do in spreading the word about Scientology and recognizing cults. We're going to look at a few things, some interesting side effects from it, and maybe even test your knowledge of this. So this is from International Cult Awareness Month. This is a website. Characteristics of cults. We're going to look at, I got a video that we're going to look at from another cult and something from Sarah Edmondson, who was in NXIVM, where this is going to very much be tied to that. So I'm going to link this down below so you can read the whole thing, but there's some really interesting points here to keep in mind. We talk a lot about Scientology because there's so much Scientology cult news, but the commonalities from cult to cult are scarily similar. I mean, look at this. Cults share several common traits that distinguish them from mainstream religious or social groups. First, they usually have a charismatic leader who exerts enormous control over followers. I think we can check that box for Scientology. This leader often claims to have special knowledge or a unique connection to a higher power, setting them apart as a figure of authority and reverence. Again, Scientology. The leader's charisma is a powerful tool in attracting and retaining members, creating a magnetic and authoritative persona. Second, cults isolate members from society, promoting an us versus them mentality. We see this all the time in Scientology. This was one of the biggest things I was so happy to discard in my healing after I left Scientology. This us versus them mentality. With anything, honestly. It's not just to Scientology. I just feel like any group where becomes a red flag for me, where it's us against them, and it's so black and white, and that black and white thinking, my cult radar starts going off, that it is cult behavior. It is coercive control. The leader often claims to have special knowledge or a unique connection to a higher power. The leader's charisma is a powerful tool in attracting and retaining members. Oh, wait, we read that part. Okay, so the isolation part, right? Members are often discouraged from interacting with outsiders, including families and friends, who might challenge the group's belief or practices. This isolation helps maintain control and suppress dissent. In Scientology, we were so heavily encouraged to, oh, you need a chiropractor? Here's a Scientologist. Oh, you need a dentist? Go to this Scientologist, because they will protect you from falling into the hands of the psychiatrist. And I know I kind of laugh when I say that, but that really is how it is. That really is what they do. So the third cults often employ a rigid and authoritarian structure. The leader's decisions are absolute, and questioning or dissent is not tolerated. Again, check the Scientology box. But this article is not about just Scientology. This is all cults, which is what I find so fascinating. This structure ensures that the leader's authority remains unchallenged and that members conform to the group's norms and expectations, right? David Miscavige. The hierarchy within the group often places the leader at the top with a few trusted lieutenants who help enforce the rules and maintain order. That is exactly like Scientology, but more so, it's like other coercive groups, high control groups, and cults as well. And I find it really interesting too, with many of you never in Scientology, but all in on ending this cult, have had those experience in other coercive groups. It never ceases to blow my mind that Scientology is basically just a cult like other cults when it comes to how it operates. Scientology has some added twists and turns in it and damage that it caused through auditing and other practices that are harmful to people. And I think those things are what gives it that extra evil twist and makes it so hard to recover from Scientology. We talked about how cult experts have said it takes an average of 12 and a half years to recover from Scientology. It takes 2-3 times, I think it was 3 to 4 times the amount of time to deprogram somebody from Scientology than it does other groups. Well, what I find so fascinating too in this is think about this as it applies to other maybe groups that you're in too. I mean, because there's so many, you don't really know you're in a cult at first, right? Because there's love bombing. It all seems normal in ways, especially you came from a different kind of background or upbringing. You might not see the red flags. It's just, the whole subject fascinates me. Now, we're going to take a look at a video from real Alex Clark. She's here on YouTube. She did a video called I Was Raised in a Satanic Cult Surviving Hell with Kibilinga. And Kibilinga is a young lady who survived a satanic cult. But listen to what she has to say, because I found this too to be similar to some of the experiences in Scientology.
My mother did experience satanic ritual abuse. I can't make that a fact. There's clues. She's told me stuff like, the stuff I'm doing to you happened to me. Also, a huge clue is my grandmother was a part of the grooming process.
Of you?
Mm-hmm. And my sisters. Although I have not seen her participate in a child sacrificing ritual or even animals, because one ritual was with cats. She would buy us porcelain dolls. And then when we would go to grandma's house, we would feed the porcelain dolls potion. So there was like no actual potion in the bottle, but that was our family's code name for psychedelics. And that gives me reason to believe that I was drugged with psychedelics as a baby. Now, obviously, I can't prove that I was a baby, but the grooming that my grandmother had my sisters and I go through, where we're like feeding these dolls psychedelics.
Now, this got me thinking about the use of dolls in Scientology as well, because when you're training as a Scientology auditor, you practice on dolls. You'll have, like, let's say I'm the Scientologist, right? And I'm doing the training and you're my coach on the other end for this course. Here's the e-meter. You're holding the cans, and in your lap or in front of you is a doll. because I'm not auditing the coach. I'm not auditing the person helping me. I'm auditing the doll. So the coach will speak for the doll and try to simulate certain movements on the e-meter. Anytime you learn, even learning how to do assist, you can do it on a doll. Dolls are used. You'll see them. In fact, when Chicago opened, if you guys remember, some of the college students went in and took videos and showed all the creepy Scientology dolls in there. They are used to train Scientologists, both children and adults. But I can totally see now how that kind of softens your mind to the idea of normalizing certain behaviors and normalizing the type of questions that you would be asking as well. Amber Vanessa says, that's why when I got seriously hurt in the cadet organization, they took me to a Scientology doctor and not to the hospital. Exactly. James Steele, it's a good job. Scientology doesn't have a bring your child to work day. Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah. So it really got me thinking about that. I haven't given a lot of thought in the past too much to the use of dolls in Scientology and how they're used, because that was completely normalized. We're not just practicing auditing on dolls. We were yelling at ashtrays. Stand up, lift up the ashtray, sit down, put down the ashtray. Those are drills you do in Scientology to learn to impinge, to get your message across. That's right. Does it matter? Dolls, clay, demo kits. Always, I feel like it just normalizes a lot of the behavior and the beliefs. And I was just, it kind of freaked me out when I heard that. And I'm like, wow, they use dolls too in a different way. And I never thought about it that way as far as how it goes and works with grooming. So compare that to a cult like NXIVM. And Sarah Edmondson, you guys are probably familiar with her, right? She was in The Vow. She wrote a book about her experience. And she talks about an interesting side effect of exposing her cult and other cults. Give this a little listen here.
What I didn't realize is that The Vow opened up a world where people in all different religions and cults and abusive relationships, anything there was coercive control or gaslighting, people watched that and saw themselves in it and felt that they were no longer alone, and they felt seen. I had no idea that was going to happen when we did The Vow. Like, even when we were filming it, we were documenting it partly for protection, because we had to show what we were doing and we were trying to do the right thing. And I never thought this footage would become an HBO hit during a pandemic and reach people in all over the world and give them hope to get out of the situation they were in some cases avoid a situation. I can't even tell you how many people wrote to me saying, I almost signed up for this thing or joined this thing, and then I saw The Vow and I realized what the red flags were. What I didn't realize is that The Vow opened up.
That is so true. And I hear this so much from so many of you, never in Scientology, but all in on ending this cult, the similarities in the behavior and how you connect to that. Because you realize that you may have been in a coercive group or a coercive situation. It's so much more invasive than I think many of us even realize, right? Because you can be involved in this type of group without even being fully in it. And often, I think because there's been so much awareness raised about it, that people are more on alert for cults, for being love bombed, for being, come off to my group. I mean, you got Scientologists trying to recruit people at Six Flags. So other cults, I can only make the assumption, would be doing the same thing. Let's see. Mock says it's about desensitization and dehumanization, turning humans into dolls, essentially. That really speaks to me, because as a child doing these things in Scientology, I remember thinking that I didn't feel like I was a real person, because I just have to, read back these things or do these training routine drills, and they felt very robotic. Even as a kid, as a young kid, I felt like I didn't have the words to express what I was feeling, but I can remember the feeling of that it was just sucking away my individuality and trying to show me how I needed to be and respond and act, and that was the only acceptable way to be as a child in Scientology, which is basically obedient, which there's nothing wrong with listening to your parents and being a good kid. I'm talking about obedience when it comes to Scientology with their rules. and not, following everything to the letter in Scientology. Julie says cults all seem to operate basically the same way, whether it's religious, commercial, or political. That is so true. And that is what blows my mind so much is the more I learn about that, the more I learn about these other cults and these other situations and coercive groups, high control groups. I can see that. I can see that. And my hope is that other people see that. Are other people seeing it? And I think that they are. And I think often many of you too, because I've heard from a lot of people who are like, wow, I didn't think this situation I was in was a cult, but now I'm looking back and I'm glad I got out of there because it involved coercive control. It involved covering up abuse. It involved giving over your autonomy, not having control over your own, what you want to do and who you want to be. And we see that behavior even in different communities. I mean, just look on the internet online. It's like, if you don't agree 100% with how this person thinks, somehow it's just such a great offense where my 2 cents is I would like to see more conversations around these disagreements of being able to say, so my point of view is this, your point of view is this. Let's explore those 2 things and see what we can learn from each other. To be able to have conversations like that around this topic that is already difficult enough, especially when you're talking to former members, it can be hard enough to talk about it. Now let's add in another level of coercive control. Creating a safe space. And that's something I hope to do here on YouTube. And I think that we are doing that here on my channel, is to create a space where people can share, where we can talk about things that we don't see the same way. Because the whole idea is to not be in a cult. My channel is called Scientology, Life After a Cult. And not being in a cult anymore, I can think and do anything that I would like. If I want to explore something or learn more about it, or I have an opinion about something, it's just my opinion. Somebody having an opinion does not mean that you have to agree with it or run with it. It's just an opinion. It's a data point. It's something to think with. It doesn't mean, oh, this person said this, so they're saying that this is that way for everybody. No, it's not. Again, that's cult mentality. That's cult thing. Somebody can have a point of view on something and share it, and you cannot agree. But they also can believe that. That's the thing about it. That's so interesting. That is just so fascinating. Lady Jane Out says, comment, I recently found out that I was in a cult for almost 2 years. It's on the top 10 cults in America, lost the International Church of Christ, run by Kip McKean, who I once met. Lady Jane, that is interesting. I would like to learn more about that for sure. I want to make sure I grab all the stars things. We did that. I do not know the answer to this question, Ren. Was Elfman in Scientology before the Dharma and Greg show? I don't recall. If any of you do, can you throw it in the chat? Or if you're on the replay, in the comments, please do. Lisa Kelson, Natalie, you look amazing. Love your hair and your blouse. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad, because I just half the time, it's just like I wake up so early and I'm like, sometimes I'm surprised I don't just show up here in my robe, because I'm like, I got to get dressed, and I fall behind in getting ready. Joe Banks, yes, education is everything. So important. And being able to share so many different stories and ways that people can connect with the understanding of what they should be watching out for when it comes to a cult or a coercive group can be learned through Scientology or even other cults. I feel like what we share here raises awareness about cults, not just Scientology. Scientology is the cult I was in for 35 years, but it is not the only one. They're springing up all the time. And to be honest, it's very disturbing, actually. Let's see. I'm going to grab some comments here now. So if you guys have questions, pop them in. Beth, why won't you talk about the girl running from Big Blue the other day? I've talked about it for the last 2 days. So go back and watch my videos. Nora did a really good recap and timeline about it. So I didn't feel there was a need to go do it. And it took 3 hours to do because there's so much there. And that situation is a great example of Scientology protecting potential predators. Now, whether it's the father or Scientology, we don't know. But Scientology crapped the bed on that in the biggest way. And we're not going to know a lot of what happened, I think, because the girl is a minor, but it opens the door to a conversation about children in Scientology or even other groups and high control groups. How far do you go as a parent when you don't know you're in a cult? They're just going to, introduce their kids to it because they think that, oh, it's no different than as if I was in a different religion. But we have talked about it. I'm not sure there's anything new to share, but if there is, by all means, please email me, Natalie@lifeafteraCult.com, and we'll absolutely talk about it. Let's see. Hey, Joe Buchanan. Are you just jumping in? Good to see you. Yep, Cubana Chica. Beth, she talked about it yesterday and directed us to the excellent job Nora and Kelly did. Watch Nora. It's very comprehensive. Very comprehensive. I mean, it's a 3-hour video, but you really got to watch the whole thing. The way that she laid it out, I thought was fantastic. Yep. Joe Banks, 100%. They're all over the place when it comes to cults. So understanding and getting the word out is, and like Sarah Edmondson said, she did not think by sharing her story and raising awareness about NXIVM that so many people would connect with that and be like, oh, I have a high control situation. I've been under coercive control, emotional blackmail, all of the things. I think at the end of the day, it's like we get to make our own decisions as individual people. And it is okay to not see all things the same way. I think that's the beauty of it and the beauty of a community. I was born and raised in Hawaii. And even though I was raised in Scientology, I still had a lot of exposure to different groups and different types of people. Hawaii is a melting pot. My family was a melting pot. I have multiple nationalities. My step family was Japanese, and they're the ones that primarily raised me. And then my biological family was Hawaiian, Chinese on my mother's side, American Indian, Portuguese, even a little Scottish and Irish. And there's so much to learn that I learned from my friends growing up in these different groups and different religions. I think it's great to keep having those conversations. Ooh, Helen, you're up late. I guess it's not super late over there, actually. I'm like, is it past 5? Last night, I was so tired. And I do think we did a members only live and someone mentioned it's probably daylight savings time. I had forgotten about that. And I think that that's what it was. I was so tired yesterday. I went to bed early and I thought, oh, well, 8 o'clock's not so bad to get into bed. And I get in bed and I've brushed my teeth. I've done all the things. I'm comfy in my bed. I'm settling in to watch a little bit of What We Do in the Shadows. And I realized it's 7 p.m. I didn't change the clock on my stove. And that's the one I looked at. So yeah, I was in bed at 7 o'clock last night. Didn't fall asleep right then, but still. James Steele, I hate that life gets in the way of Natalie watching. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about the replay. You can always catch it on the replay. David Bruce says, if the culture that you were born into is wrong, by whose standard are we being judged? Exactly. I think too, when we're talking about cults and high control groups, and especially here in Scientology, now, and this is what I would like to see more of, and I try to do it myself. I do not do it perfectly, is to give each other grace and understanding. Because a lot of these topics, things can get heated. They should. There's a lot of upset and hurt and pain. It doesn't matter what cult it was. You see this in other groups as well, like outside of Scientology, NXIVM and other ones. It can be difficult to talk about. And I think whatever we can do to just, even if you disagree with somebody, okay. But it doesn't mean that everything that they say is invalid from that point on. You can disagree on this thing or that thing. But, I guess I'm not a believer in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because that is something for me in Scientology was a practice. If you don't align 100% with the views of Scientology and the beliefs, you are now a them and we're us over here, and it's us against them. And I mean 100%. We weren't allowed to go, oh, I agree with L. Ron Hubbard of 8 out of the 12 points of keeping Scientology working. No, not allowed, because that's a cult. That's a coercive group. That's high control. It's okay to say, hey, I believe with a couple of things, but I don't believe these things over here. If that was allowed in Scientology, it would be a big step in the direction of it not being such a cult. You should be able to think with the information that you read or you study. You should be able to take what you want from it and get rid of what doesn't work. I think personally, that's been a key part in my recovery from Scientology, just taking that approach in life. I keep what I like, I discard what I don't. It's that simple. I'm not trying to convince anybody that they're wrong or that they're right on these points, except when it comes to Scientology being a human trafficking cult. Because there's so much room in this space. There's so much, and there's so many stories to tell and be shared, especially when it comes to cults. It really does. Amber says, that's why I say nice things to everyone, even if we don't believe the same stuff. Yeah, it's hard and it's difficult for many people to share their story or revisit these topics. So I think we can all go a long way, all of us, myself included, in just trying to be more understanding of when somebody's going through a difficult time, or even if they don't agree with you, like, that's okay. Let's just not respond in a way that would seem like a Scientology or a cult response. Let's see. Lisa says, how we reclaim our autonomy has many overlaps. And it looks like there's a second part. I'll see if I can find it. But even just that, Lisa, you're right. There are many overlaps to that. Absolutely. Oh, I forgot to throw Davey. All right. Well, David Miscavige, cult leader of Scientology, Office of Special Affairs. Now, if you just got here, you have to go back and watch on the replay because we talked a lot of stuff. And hopefully you're even seeing that you don't have to listen to this man. It is okay to go, you know what? I don't agree with this, and be gone. Be done with that. You can leave. It's all a personal choice. Ren listens. Choosing what you believe is a personal choice. Cults program their members with groupthink, not personal choice. Exactly. And just because if Ren didn't like a particular person and I liked that person, Ren's not going to not talk to me because of that. That is okay. We get to like and dislike different people. If somebody is saying, well, you like this person, therefore I'm disconnecting from you. Cult, cult, cult. That's how I feel about it. And we see this too, as I learn more about other cult and coercive groups over and over and over again. That's such a key part of the behavior. And I think we all need to be aware of that to make sure things do not get too culty. That's right, Shelley Kelly. It's okay to think for yourself, and it's okay to have a different opinion. I have a different opinion often on things that I'll share with you guys. You don't have to take everything I say as gospel. Question it. Question it. What's, even in Scientology, there's this Scientologist will say, well, L. Ron Hubbard says, what's true for you is true for you. Yeah, he said that. He said a lot of things, though. Scientology doesn't stand by that. What's true for you is true for you, as long as it's true for Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. And if it's not and you believe it, then you need false data stripping, which is a procedure to strip you of that, including your individuality. That's the key point for me here, is when we strip ourselves of our own thoughts and opinions, and we lean too heavily on the thoughts and opinions of somebody else, then where's our own autonomy in that? Where's our own growth? And sometimes we make mistakes, and that's how we learn. I just think it's really important. Oh, that's right. I love Shelley Kelly. Hitting it out of the park as usual there. All right, you guys, hit that like, hit that subscribe, but most importantly, get out there and have an amazing cult-free day.